Hey PLN, welcome to episode 215 of Fresh Air at 5. This week was a short listening week because it is the fullness of all the things. Yearbook is coming to an end. We've got a lot of things going on at school. And yes, I didn't get up for the first 2 days. I actually got up, but I didn't go for my walk. And I wish I would have. But that's why I walk, to refresh my mind, to do some learning. In this episode, I have 5 or 6 podcasts that I listen to. So, without further ado, episode 215 of Fresh Air at 5.
This is Robin Wilson, host of The Education Connection, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Good morning, PLN. It's Wednesday, April 30, 2025, last day of April. We are into May, the 5th month. Tomorrow, wow, where has the time flown? I know I say this every year, but it just goes so fast. But we look back at all the things that have happened before now, and there's been a lot of things this school year. So, as I'm stepping into today, I actually had to drag myself out of bed and get outside. I didn't feel like it. I've been working on projects at school, newsletter and yearbook and marking and planning my fishing trip this coming weekend and fishing last weekend and the weekend before because it's fishing season. And I had to push myself to get out of bed. In doing so, this morning, I listened to episode 133 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell, as Lainey brings us an episode called Redefining Defiance with Sunita Shah, Dr. Sunita Shah, as she talks about defiance in comparison to compliance in our society. And she does research on defiance and understanding what that means for self-efficacy. We use that word. That's a positive word, whereas defiance is not a positive word. I learned a lot of things about psychology and behavior and our behavior and how we behave when we're in a situation, and why don't we say something as opposed to why we do say something sometimes. And it has to do with compliance. And looking at our school system, we want students to comply. You know why? It makes my job easier. It makes my job way easier if my students comply. Thinking about this, I don't care for the defiant student in my class. But you know what? Now, after listening to this, I think I might understand them a little bit better. And that is helpful. So that's where I'm at. I learned some things this morning. Thank you, Lainey. Thank you, Sunita. Appreciate it very much. Take a listen for yourself, everybody. Goodbye. Good morning, PLN. It's May 1, 2025. It's the beginning of May. Wow, that's fantastic. Super excited because we have a lot of activities happening between now and the end of the school year, even though it's only 2 months out. All right, this morning I listened to episode 317 of the Easy Ed Tech podcast with Monica Burns, as she's thinking about the same thing I am, that we're getting close to the end, and has provided us with 8 year-end celebration ideas that are creative to engage your students in wrapping up the school year. So these are a number of them are they're technical things and using technology. That's what I'm trying to say. From making slideshows in your class, advice pages for incoming students, to just kind of wrapping up reflective things for students. You can take students on virtual field trips through Google Arts and Culture and some other things like that. Monica's got a fantastic list of things here and shares some creative ways to use these strategies so that you can have a great time. All right, that's all I got for this one. I'm going to listen to another podcast, and we'll talk to you soon. The last thing for May 1, 2025, Tech Tools for Teachers, episode 211, with Shanna Martin and Fuzz Martin. They bring us science, resources, and innovation for resources for your classroom. So check this episode out, because there's a lot of content in here that Shanna shares. She shares a couple of websites. One is Science News Explores, and the other one is Technovations. And she gives a good description of each of these things. And as a science teacher, you can have access to some more ideas of bringing relevance to the mundane that we sometimes teach as science teachers. You know, why do we do the things that we do and learn about these things? There's a place for it. And so there's news articles and projects and science experiments and all kinds of things that you can do with your students, and families can do at home, that Shanna shares through these 2 websites. So thank you, Shanna. Appreciate it. And congratulations on reading that disclaimer, Fuzz, so many times. Yes. Well, that's awesome. Since January of 2019 that you 2 have been doing this podcast. All right. Listen to episode 211 of Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin. All right, I couldn't have that last section be the very last thing, so this is the very last thing. And I listened to episode 33 of season 5 of the Teach Happier podcast with Suzanne Daly, and she brings us an idea for the summer as we get ready for summer, and we are in the final stages of our school year. Me, true story, it's May. We got less than 2 months. Well, we got 2 months left of school before summertime. And Suzanne brings us this book as a recommendation. She, in the next few episodes, is going to talk about different parts of this book. So suggested reading for the summer, called 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. And he breaks it down, Sahil Bloom breaks this down into, I'm assuming it's a he, into 5 sections of time: physical, social, financial, and one other kind of wealth, and asks a big idea question at the beginning of it to challenge us as we read the chapter. So, Suzanne, you have piqued this guy's interest, and piqued it so much that I am going to consider going and looking at getting the book in a physical form so I can hold it in my hand. Yes. So you should take a listen to what she has to say in this episode and the big idea questions of this book. All right. That's all I got, actually. And that is the very end of May 1st recording for Fresh Air at 5. Okay. Bye. Hey, PLN Friday, May 2, 2025. This morning's a beautiful morning. The sun is on its way up, and the sky is nice and orange in front of me, not where you can see, but in front of me. All right, as I was walking this morning, I listened to the Smile Factor podcast with Matthew, Joseph, and Laurie Guillon as they talked about their conferencing opportunities that they have before them and how they go to these conferences, and they're conferences but more think tanks of presenting content and what's going on with them and having a conversation for tech and learning for Matthew as he's heading to Massachusetts for that, and Laurie as she's going to actually more of a library association conference in Chicago, and just talking about how they bring their work to it and not overwhelm those people that are there, and talk about process. Process is so important. How'd you get from here to there? Not what's the magic bullet, but more how's the struggle and how are those things happening. This episode that I listened to, I think it was called How to Build Successful Teams. And I think the ticket for this one is that the key for this one is surrounding yourself with practical people, people that are practical and that want to move forward. When you walk into a team, though, how do you not engage with those that are not interested in moving it forward? Is that what a team is? I look at teams around me and places I'm involved with, and the teams around me are people that want to do the work of whatever organization it is. I'm on my daughter's choir board, and we're working hard there. And, I'm on my teachers association, and we all have a job and a role there to push the thing forward for those that we're serving in our community. All right, thanks so much. Have a fabulous day. I've got one more podcast to listen to, and then it's the weekend, and I'm going fishing. All right, okay, bye-bye. The last thing for May 2, 2025. All right, I just finished listening to the X Factor Level Up Your Mental Game, episode 78, as Brian Martin brings us a challenge of how to build a championship culture. And he talks about 3 simple words that affect the way we approach teamwork and being on a team. And the last segment I was talking about team and how surrounding yourself with practical people is important. When we're on a sports team, I hope it's practical people, because y'all got a purpose and a thing to do out on the field or in the court or whatever. But when you're in, work and around you and your friends and outside of school, your teams are about the strength of the members of those places. Recognize, acknowledge, and extend. Talking about seeing what people are doing and recognizing it, like paying attention to the effort and the work that they're doing is important. And then acknowledging that, talking to the person about it and, saying, hey, I noticed that you did this, and acknowledging it and saying the words. And then beyond that, sharing their goodness beyond. This sounds like Teach Happier strategies that Suzanne Daly's been talking to us about for the past year. So Brian, these are great ideas. I love them so much. And I'm not on a sports team other than my walking in the morning, but and that's me on a team. But I have to, recognize, acknowledge, and then extend to grow our teams better than they are. All right, all. Have a fabulous day. Okay, bye-bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.